I do want to bring up another wonderful presenter of ours. He is the executive director of Grand Performance, Southern California's premier free outdoor performing arts presenter, and we're also very proud to have him as MPV's international board member. Please welcome Michael Alexander.
Thank you very much, Ani, for inviting me to do this. Earlier this week, well, today's Sunday, Monday of last week, I got to speak in front of a gathering of performing arts professionals from North America about arts advocacy. And in my talk, I said that one of my mentors had told me that art is the lie that tells the truth. And I'm honored to be the third person up here today honoring artists, because it is going to be artists who are going to help share the stories that will help other people understand the truths that they need to know so that we can all make this a better world. As such, I was asked to become Amjad Sabri. My name is Amjad Sabri. I am from the bustling streets of Karachi, Pakistan, a city that has unfortunately become notorious for political, ethnic, and religious violence. It has become a city that is inhospitable to freethinkers, lovers, and beloveds. But in my childhood, I experienced a very different Pakistan. You see, I hail from a lineage of renowned qawwals that can be traced back to the Mughal court of Akbar the Great. Qawwals are the Sufi poets who sing zikirs, mystical chants in praise of the Most High. The Sufi practice of Islam is focused on purifying the heart by channeling the divine love. When the Sufis come together in their orders to sing the sacred songs, the heart is filled with love and light. During the days of my youth, our existence and presence was part of the fabric of our cultural heritage. Everyone, young and old, would come to the shrines where the qawwals would play their devotional songs. The shrine would be decked out with the lights, bright-colored fabrics, and finely dressed artists expressing their truest devotion through the Sufi zikir. My father was one of them, Ghulam Farid Sabri, half of the famous Qawwali party, the Sabri brothers. Yes, the Sabri brothers, who played Carnegie Hall in 1975, whose music was featured in Bollywood films, who toured America, Canada, Europe, and all of Asia. But before he achieved fame and renown, he faced the hardship of the life of a refugee. He was uprooted from his home in northern India and forced into a refugee camp in Karachi when the British partitioned India. At only 17 years of age, my father found work carrying bricks to help support the family. He eventually built a house from those bricks, a feat which nearly killed him. As my grandfather lay dying, my father asked his father what he could do. My grandfather responded, "Purify your heart. It is time to make zikir." So for the next 2 years, he chanted for hours each night, strengthening his lungs and reawakening his spirit. Eventually, he became strong enough to sing again. Years later, he formed the Sabri Brothers Qawwali party with my uncle Maqbul Ahmed Sabri. That is how he cured himself and how music and love saved him. My musical training began at 9 years old with the various musical modes of classical Indian music called ragas, or rags. The word rag means coloring, but in reality it is an array of melodic structures with musical motifs. It is said that these motifs, which have no direct translation in classical European musical terminology, bring color to the emotions of the audience and evoke intense feelings of anguish, loss, hope, euphoria, and love. And the only way to learn how to create this energy within the music is to endure a vigorous course of training. From the age of 9, I began by waking up at 4 in the morning, washing up, praying the Fajr, which means dawn prayer, and immediately practicing the raga Harav, the most difficult rug ever invented. My father figured if I could master this, I could handle them all. Eventually, I began to go on tour with the Sabri brothers. After my father's death in 1994, I branched off on my own and began to perform around Pakistan. After touring Europe and North America, I became known as the rock star of Qawwal. And I noticed that each time I returned to tour, I would attract a more diverse crowd than before. Eventually, my fans came to encompass people of all nationalities, faiths, and identities. This was the power of being in the state of wajad, the spiritual ecstasy produced by the remembrance of God. The Sufis channeled this ecstasy through zikir. Qawwali was a direct path to wajad, and it is something the soul feels regardless of religion or language. My father was a master at performing in a state of perfect wajad, which radiated outward and intoxicated the entire audience. I hope I have made him proud. Like I said earlier, my city has become inhospitable to lovers and beloveds alike. Today, Karachi is not like my Karachi of my youth. The Taliban are gaining numbers and strength and terrorize the city with violence and mayhem that has put a chokehold on daily life. The city's rich musical heritage is at risk, along with artists, philosophers, thinkers, poets, and activists who are vocally calling for change. Many great losses have burdened this city, including that of Sabim Mahmoud, whom you honored last year. Today, in 2017 in Karachi, we must contend with this reality. And I am a singing mystic who preaches love, oneness, and teaches spiritual ascension. This is the context for what I am about to tell you. This is the setting behind which my story unravels. As I was busy creating and performing, I came under scrutiny by the government in 2014. I appeared on a television program in which I sang a Nat, a song traditionally dedicated to the Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessing be upon him, as well as his family. In Sufi tradition, the family members of the prophets are revered as saints, which is seen as blasphemy by the government as well as the extremists fighting the government. The Islamabad High Court filed a blasphemy suit against me, the television station, and the show's hosts. Eventually, the suit was dropped, but it put a target on my back and set a tone in Karachi that effectively rubber-stamped any retaliation against me by hardline Islamists. And then for a short time, things seemed to come back to some semblance of normalcy. I returned to music, recording the incredible duet at Coke Studios with the famous Rahat Fateh Ali Khan. I felt immense in the intensity of my devotion. I was rooted in my confidence that God was on my side. I knew it was my mission to spread the elegance of ecstatic bliss in humanity. Until one dark day in January 2016, when 3 unidentified gunmen burst into my home with my mother present and demanded to know my location. Thank God they did not harm her, for they left when it was clear I was not home. In June 2016, we celebrated Ramadan as usual, and I made my way to a local television station to perform a Nat for the Holy Prophet. It was a lovely performance. I sang a cappella briefly, and as my voice reverberated through the stage, I felt an intense connection with the audience. Afterwards, my associate and I walked to the entrance of the studio where my driver was waiting to pick us up. We entered the vehicle and headed towards town. All things considered, it was a truly beautiful day. As I looked at the one overpass above me, I noticed it had been dedicated to my father. A sense of peace filled me, and then pure love and light. It is said that in that moment, 2 motorcyclists approached my vehicle and shot me twice in the head and once in the ear. The men with me were injured as well. While on the way to the hospital, I recalled the last words I ever sang. Quote, "When I shudder in my dark tomb, dear prophet, look after me." I am survived by my widow and 5 children, the oldest of whom is my 12-year-old son. When news of my death reached the people, tens of thousands took to the street in mourning as well as protest. They were angry for the heinous way in which I was killed, anguished by the loss of yet another cultural icon, and hysterical over the fear-mongering tactics of the Taliban. In the evening, when tempers had settled, they lit candles for me, and they began to sing together in my memory, with their hands raised in ecstatic jubilation. The Pakistani Taliban took credit for my death immediately, and the 2 motorcyclists have been apprehended and identified as part of a faction that has deep ties to ISIS and coordinated attacks in Pakistan on their behalf. And why did they kill me? All I did was continue following in the footsteps of my ancestors, who were engaged in a 700-year-old religious and musical tradition. Perhaps it was because my foundational beliefs focus on a personal connection with God and living the ideals of unity, equity, and peace. And perhaps it is because my mere existence proves that their version of Islam is perverse, illegitimate, and rooted in immorality. There are millions of Sufis in Pakistan and all over the world. Slowly but surely, they will shine a light on your darkness. This is my story. I am Amjad Sabri.
Thank you, Michael. That was beautiful.